On occasion, a family would invite me over to their house for dinner, and I enjoy those things. And oftentimes during the meal, the children move off to another room. Oh, and by the way, that is one of the ministries we have here. If you ever want to feed me at your house, I'm always willing to do that. But sometimes during the meal, when the children move off to another room and just the adults are talking, oftentimes something in the other room happens. A lot of times it's just the kids are getting rowdy and rambunctious. And mom will ask, or mom or dad will ask that profound question, what is going on over there? What is going on in there? Sometimes the kids are in there and all of a sudden it goes silent. And mom and dad are like, what is going on in there? Maybe Michael has choked out little Johnny. But there is a curiosity that is piqued by the parents that something either needs to be investigated or ignored. Investigated or ignored, because something is going on in there. Now we have this beautiful and very famous section of scripture in Genesis 18, where we have Abraham literally walking side by side with God, and they're having a conversation. And God says, I have heard the great outcry against the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and I'm going to go there and check it out because something is going on there. I'm going to find out what's going on. Now, it is very important, and I think it's often stressed by the church. You often hear it in sermons of the care of Abraham. He is a priest, and he is asking for the mercy on the behalf of his people to God, to not bring justice, that whole negotiation. What if you just find 50? What about 45? What about 40, 30, 20, 10? He is mitigating, which is his job, asking for mercy. Now, all that is important. But I would say also it is a fair question for all of us to ask, what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah? What's going on over there? It's an important question to ask. We may leave that aside, but I think it invites an investigation and not to ignore it. Now let me fast forward about 1970 years. Just by looking around, there are people in here that were around in the 1970s, right? I can see you out there. Now, in the 1970s, there was a band that came out with a famous song that you still hear today and that I enjoy too. In the 1970s, the Village People released the song YMCA, and they still play it all over the place, and I like it too. It's a fun song, and you still hear it. But I remember a friend of mine, or somebody had the album of the Village People, you know, the cop and the Indian and construction worker, all those guys. And on the back, it had the list of songs. And there it was, right at the top, YMCA. It had some other songs, Macho Man. But on the very bottom, it had another song called Sodom and Gomorrah. What is going on there? Well, all you have to do is read the lyrics, and they'll tell you what's going on and what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, nothing against the Village People. They may have been struggling with some disordered inclinations. But it was important enough for God to investigate. And it's mentioned at least 5 times in the New Testament. In Matthew 10, Luke 10, 2 Peter, and Jude. It lays out what was going on there. But I would also say it was an invitation to fix something, to eradicate something, and to heal something. That's what was going on. That's what God wanted to do. Now, this curiosity, this inclination to investigate or to ignore can be a real positive thing as well. And we recognize it in ourselves. Because that's what I think the apostles were doing when this question, we don't know who asked it, somebody asked Jesus, Lord, teach us to pray. Lord, teach us to pray. Where does that come from? I think whoever asked it saw something in Jesus and saw what he was doing, saw him praying, had a special relationship with the Father as he went off to pray, and probably said to the other guys, what's going on over there? What is he doing that we don't know about? What is that relationship that he has that we have to admit that we desire? We want that closeness to what is going on over there. And as we hear, if you knock, the door will be open. Ask and you shall have it. Jesus gives them the Lord's Prayer. Sure, there's two different versions of it, depending on how the gospel writer remembered it. But it is a perfect prayer. And it was the beginnings of their prayer life. But little did they know, and I think it was just an invitation to something higher, invitation to something deeper and more personal. That was the first step for them to be able to say something that they're not used to saying, to calling God Father. And I think it comes to full fruition here in an intimate relationship that we have, in a sacrifice that we have when we offer God the Son to God the Father. That's what happens here at this altar. We get to participate in that. A sacrifice of the Son offered to the Father. How powerful, and who do we think we are? But right in the midst of that, right in the center of it, and even tells me to say, dare we dare to say, our Father who art in heaven. It is an invitation to so much more, but I think it is also a reaction to us being able to say, what's going on there? We want that. What's going on there? We want an answer. And oftentimes, even admitting when we see someone doing something or some other people doing something, to admit to be humble and admit that maybe God asks more of us. You know, this happens, I think, I've seen personally, even in the area of sports. I've often think it's very humbling. I've seen this where a school, a university or a high school, something like that, where a group of coaches will ask another group of coaches at a rival school who are successful, and they're not. They'll admit it. Hey, we haven't been successful. You guys are successful. What's going on over there? What's going on? I remember there would be actual whole coaching staffs would move, stay in a hotel. I saw this when I was in Lockhart. They went to San Antonio and met with some of the coaches at Clark or Judson to admit, listen, what's going on over here? We want more. We want that. What are you doing? Universities do this too. They'll ask successful universities, staffs, and even the administration. Baylor did this once in like 2000, called Notre Dame, their administration, hey, what are you guys doing over there? What's going on over there? And they actually stayed there for a little while and started to transfer some of those things they were doing at their school. And that's humbling. You have to admire that. The moment they said, what's going on over there? And most of the time someone says, hey, come on, I'll show you what we're up to. I'll show you what we're up to. But even here, sitting in these pews, remember that people are watching. That even in your neighborhoods and your houses, oftentimes the gossip gets going. Hey, what's going on over there in that house? People notice when something's going wrong, when you're violating some HOA violation or something, and they tell who's ever in charge. But don't think if you have a vibrant and prayerful and energetic Catholic faith, Catholic family, children, babies, the people don't notice. And they just might ask you, what's going on over there? What do you guys have? Tell us about it. That's very powerful and humbling because it identifies an inner hunger, not just a curiosity. Curiosity can be bad. Curiosity leads to sin. That's, I think, people have given in to sin of drugs, alcohol, pornography. When they look at something, they go, that might make me happy. And they give into it, and now they're hooked. It's an unhealthy curiosity. But the healthy curiosity is when we see something that's working and admit that we want that. What's going on over there? So let me say once again, and I say this with joy and excitement and a little bit of shock. The Catholic Church in America has some new energy to it. And you can look this up. Something we haven't had since the 60s. We've always been a minority in the United States, but Catholics have been on this continent since Christopher Columbus dropped some Franciscans off in the Caribbean and Honduras. We've been here, but we've always been a minority. And we went through the Second Vatican Council and a series of scandals and even the lockdown. But there's some real energy there now. Conversions in dioceses they haven't seen. When I entered the seminary, we were so excited that we had 14 seminarians. Now we have that many new guys. We have 50 some. Something has happened. Now, it may be from, Father Mike Schmitz, maybe. Maybe it's Bishop Barron, maybe. Maybe it's because we have an American Pope. That could be it. It could be it. Well, for whatever reason, there's some real energy in the church, and people are asking, what's going on over there? Even here at St. Luke, there's some conversions. We'll baptize a young man here this afternoon who's been going to our youth group for a year and a half by himself, a teenager. And some that are still coming, asking questions like, what's going on over there? It's an invitation to healing and conversion. I often think if you've ever read or familiar with the conversion of Dr. Scott Hahn, a scholar who knows the scriptures back and forth, but also the history of the church and the book of Leviticus, and how he snuck into a mass at a college campus, visited and heard the words of the Eucharistic prayer, and said the same thing. Something's going on up there. I know those words. Those are ancient, liturgical, sacrificial terms. It's not just a Bible study. This is not just a Bible study. And I think this came to fruition. It came to be visible, especially 5 years ago during the lockdown, when we couldn't have public masses. And for a lot of denominations, that's no big deal because they're there for the sermon. That's the high point of their worship. Well, they can listen to that online. They can watch it on YouTube. Our sacrifice, this Mass, the high point of the Mass is not the sermon. Thanks be to God. That's too much pressure on me and or him. Well, you're here for Jesus, an encounter, a nuptial one. That's why we come. That's why when we locked those doors, it was a smack in the face. But even going through all of that, someone may come to you, even if they drive by. This has happened to me several times here. Your parking lot looks full. Well, they're here for Jesus. In St. Luke's in particular. And someone may ask you, hey, what's going on over there?